Ayla?
Azin ist der Mensch die Zeit, wenn eine Vaters und Mutters oder Krävin verschreiben euch in einer Camp, in einer Machlichkeit, aber ich hasse es auch wegen Vacation, die Zeit, was wird befreit von Bais Bezalel, sollt ihr reingehen in dem Machne, auf mehrere Tage oder Wochen oder Chadoshim.
We were in New York the day before school was going to end. And at chassidus, the Rebbe asked if we have a camp in Cincinnati. I said, no, we never, started a camp. And at that point in life, my husband was already Rav. So, he knew that it would be impossible for him, to take on that kind of, responsibility. So he looked straight at me. And he says, camps are very important. Children will be affected by camps far more than they're affected by school all year. And that's it. You have to make a camp.
Und die Mutter und der Vater, welche sein in do Bett mit sie, als sie sollen sich nicht stabil sein, bis in der Nähe von ihr Geitel, Horde, auf reinschreiben, jeder Kind und alle Kinder, und behafteler Jakob und Mecha einwirken, auf andere Kinder und andere Eltern. Man soll sie auch verschreiben in einer Machlichkeit, in einer Camp, wo jede freie Minute wird aufgegeben auf Lernen, Torah und kein sein ihre Mitzvahs.
So we came back home, and we had two very good friends, that were always, good support, and said, look, and Rebbe said, we have to have a camp. So we have to have a camp. So what do? Well, our base has to be the school. And then we'll use parks and, other facilities that we'll find in the community. We made a flyer, and overnight we announced that we have, Camp Uparatsta, the ages of the children. And this was, let's say, on a Friday. And we had Camp Uparatsta on Monday.
I was a counselor and a handyman. Bunk Dalad was my bunk. Someone walked into Yechidus at the Rebbe and said, Rebbe, I got great news. The camp is completely full. There's even a waiting list of children to go. Rebbe said to him, what? There's a waiting list? How could we turn away kids from camp? How much time is left till the camp starts? He says, Rebbe, bloß a Woche. Only 1 week. Rebbe says, das ist genug Zeit zu bauen a building. This is enough time to build a building. We built a bunk for 21 children in 7 days. And we worked day and night, and we finished it. There was a beautiful building facing the lake. When the Rebbe came to visit, that's a building that Rebbe gave very, very special attention to. And so when I grace the Rebbe, it was an incredible pleasure to the Rebbe.
Und das sagen sollen, bet im ganzen Elam sagen, Lachayim, Fabrikane, Israel, Bechol, Mokim, Shehei. Als sie sollen Matzlier sein, Ador soll sein, Adira, Leis, Borich, und der Ingelach und der Mädelach von dorten sollen Arishko, Mezera, Berech, Hawaii, und die Madrichim und die Madrichis und der Anhole und die Mishtadlim und die Misastim sollen gehen bei Rishon, Leneged, Mishiach, Zitkenu, Bikori, Mamish. L'chaim.
So I was head counselor of the camp in Parksville. So the custom was at the last day of camp, the kids would come back from camp and daven mincha with the Rebbe. Say the psukim, the Rebbe would say a sicha for them, give them dimes.
Will the head counselors or the director of the camp come up, Avamuna and Gan Yisrael, to get the money from the Rebbe? The 2 dimes that the Rebbe is presenting through the counselors to each and every one of the camps, 1 dime is for tzedakah, the other dime is for yourself.
Before the Rebbe would speak, someone from the camp would have to represent the camp to speak to the children as the farewell message on behalf of the camp. As head counselor was my schus.
We are going to call upon Rabbi Elchanan Lisbon, who was the head counselor of Camp Gan Yisrael, who will speak first, and he will be followed by the Rabbi of Camp Amuna. Your attention, please.
As a camp, we all collectively gave the Rebbe a matana. And the gift that we are giving to the Rebbe is the gift of the schus of all the torah Shabbat that all the campers did here.
And the gift that we all here together present to the Rebbe is a gift of torah that was studied by heart. Mishnayos Baal Peh, Siddur Baal Peh for the younger campers, Chumash Baal Peh, Tanya Baal Peh, Gemara Baal Peh, Sichas Baal Peh, all together. They added up to a sum of 620 gold stars, which we present to the Rebbe Zalzai Gesund.
When the Rebbe spoke in his Sikha, subsequent to him said that, the Rebbe said the Sikha based on that theme.
Jeder von euch haben gegeben Matones von Psuke HaTeiro und von Maimore Chazal und von Kiyim HaMitzvot und gegeben Masach und mit Ponim Sechakes und mit Ponim Yofeis und das vergrößert noch mehr.
The Rebbe taught us what camp is supposed to achieve for children. You're in a sviva, they're constantly being inculcated with Torah. Says, take that, hold on to that, don't let that go, stay with it, and live with that the rest of the year.
Was zusammen auf starken den Gesund von Guf kommt mir zu der Mieke, auf was man nutzt das. Aber die Neshome soll sein noch stärker, wie sie gewöhnt früher. Und der Eberster gibt am Atone, als in dem allem soll sein a Hatzloche. Leder Bloche Atone, wo der Eberster gibt in dem.
This production is made possible through the generosity of the members of the GEM Foundation.
Bald als in Reva Medina, was nese sibische Tier ziemlich nicht zufrieden oder mit stark nicht zufrieden damit, ist da als Mann, was ne muss damit abgeben kann man scheus, befragt bei kleinen Kindern auf Limude Heil, kommt zu gehen der Nomen allein und der Mann, als ist befreit man von El der Cheretz und noch mehr von El Malchus Bosser Vodam und man gibt das Sopli Schusse, also soll erreichstellen die Kinder, wie klein sie sollen sein oder wie greise sollen sein beschonnen in a Chinuch shel Teiro Mitzvah, wo sie durchgenommen mit Yiras Hashem und mit Avas Hashem, durch Verschreiben, mal reinbringen, mal reinziehen, sehen, tun, als was wir kennen, also sollen gehen, gleich in a Yeshiva und Talmud Torah, oder Rabbi Sefer, wie der Name soll nicht sein, jede Medina, Lefi in Yono, in die Schoes, was haben sich befreit, Nesach, auf die Schoes, was in Belabwoche gelernt, Limude Kedesh, und auch dort, was sie kommt, tegen die Bote Sefer werden geschlossen. Oder mit darf haben, Chizek Brius von dem Kind, la Mitose, soll man dann gleich reinnehmen, schreiben, und reingeben und reinnehmen, in der Machne Jemi, in der Machne, was dort sein, Kol Hayem Kule, bemerkt von Wochen noch aneinander. In a Ruach, in a rumgenommen mit a Ruach von Avas Hashem und Yiras Hashem und Shiurim Beteras Hashem, Mide Yem Beyeme und Beisofo Beyema Shabbos, was Kede Shula Hashem, was hat demult in der Summe a Gesunte, Beemes waren das mal gesinnte die Kinder, sei Begashmi, sei Beruchnis, was auf das hat man die Möglichkeit, wie als man geht auf ein Kind 24 Stunden am Tag und 7 Tage am Woche und alle die Berizifos noch aneinander in einem Maimed und Matze von Nord, Teile und Mitzvahs und Avas Hashem und Yiras Hashem und mit dem Kind Masbir, also viele, Achillose und Siyose, mit Jule, mit alle Proti, was man hat in der Camp. In der Seiche, der soll mit keinem sein, am Mitzvah von Schmarten, den Afscheseichen. Und das, was wir da haben, der Guf soll sein gesund, Begashmi, darf Reche sein gesund, beruchlich. Soll leben mit Teras, Chaim. Und mit keinem sein, die ihre Mitzvahs, in welcher steht, wo Chaibohem, wenn er geht zu Avreche Yeshiva, Talmide Yeshiva, ist er Terosum Nosum. Ich sehe die Unione, Schuze, die Unione, Menucha Shalahem, darf das Sechit sein in Unione von Tera, a viele, wenn Mese Sibische Tiere, muss sich abruhen von dem Limut Beiyun. Muss haben in der Rufa Hefzeg, kann sich dann noch sein, a Limut Lemigras, a viele davon muss sich echt abruhen. Weil Pi Zivoi Horefe, Vachulu, kann das ausnutzen auf Apotzes Atero, Begufe oder Alkoholponim, Apotzes Atero, Lidei Stadlus, im Acherim, sie sollen tun, Behadrochose, wie man das eingeführt, bekam Yeshivas. Al derer sei, das Sechet Ahiro, Vergedelim, wo sie nicht rechnen, als sie seien schon als sie erwachsen und groß, als sie darf man schon nicht gehen in Yeshiva. An Echet Kevel und die, was gefunden sich in der Zug, weder, was sie leben, ist in Zug von Zwulem, von Smach, Zwulem, bei Zisecho, geht reis le Prakamatje. Und dann noch ist von dem Geld mechazik, Yisocher bei Holecho, ist Echet Davke Demo, dort die Zeit, wie mir selbst das Echet in Mina Goelam, als sie da am Menucha, al Kolponim, nicht zusammen, Ungestrengkeit und Verhabigkeit in den jungen Mistre, in der etlichen Wochen der Lescher Zman HaKaitz, noch Bais Gimel Tammuz, sollen sie damit ausnutzen, den Zman HaChefisch von der Verhorrigkeit und Vertummelkeit, bin in jungen Mistre, auf Abgeben sich und mit noch mehr Chais, wie man tut das in den jungen Esek und Mistre, in den Ingen von Apostel Atero mit Zwiseo, bechol Mokim Shiodom Agas. וכאומר ליל, dass sich a gute Hachone, echt benege Mischer, am Nordruf, als endigt sich den Vacation, dem Käfig, was man lernt von seinem Office oder von seinem Essig oder von seinem Job, muss hoppeln die paar Wochen und ruht sich auf, mehr nicht von dem Mischer und von dem Job. Tut aber, wie seis und wie reis, in der Fosse Satero mit Zwisel, geht legt sicher dem Gesetz Choser, also seine Hatzloche Basulunen, wenn sie dann noch kommen, dem Zman, was Alpischel Chonorach, hebt on Toni Masoi und Matoni Bermuno, Adamo soll sein mit mehr Hatzloche und mit weniger Piser Hanefesh und mit weniger Tildes. Und wie gerät kam Pomim, als darf sein, Jigia, Kapecho Tisechel, Mehore wird mehr nicht mit der Hand, aber die Kopf und der Herz liegt in Jüdischkeit, in Teiro Mitzweis, soll sein noch mehr als Loch in Jigia Kapecho, in dem Essen Verdienst, und nicht als Loch auf Essen nutzen den Verdienst, nur auf gute Sachen, auf gesunde Sachen, auf gute Sachen und auf jüdische Sachen.
With materials from the Living Archive, established by the Rohr family.
Okay, good vach. I'm going to, can you guys hear me? Okay. So I'm going to, okay, great. Good vach, David, good vach, Yehuda, good vach, Blake, good vach, Beryl, good vach, Menachem Mendel. I want to share with you a story, a few stories about a chassid. Oh, there he goes. There's a chassid in Argentina. Actually, he's now living in Israel, from Argentina, named Shmuel David Salfo. He's a lawyer, and he had a very, very interesting instructions and advice that the Rebbe gave him on various occasions. I'm going to share with you a few events in his life and the Rebbe's involvement. Mr. Salfoy, his family originally was a Lubavitch family back in Russia. His grandfather was a chassid of the Rebbe Rashab, and that's actually the who this Shmuel Dov is named after. And a few years after World War I, his grandfather and family moved to Argentina because there was a program that Baron Hirsch, certain baron named Baron Hirsch, began to bring Jews from Europe to Argentina, and he gave them real estate. And that's how this Mr. Salfoy's mother arrived in Argentina. And he says, from the moment that I was a child, I always knew that we had a connection with Rabbi Baumgarten, who was Rebbe's first emissary to Argentina, because he would always come to our house and give us matzah and give us a little esrog. And through Rabbi Baumgarten, we had a connection with the Rebbe as well. Really, there was, because my grandfather was a chassid Rebbe Rashab, so because of that, our family naturally wanted to, as soon as Rabbi Baumgarten was sent by the Rebbe to Argentina, we naturally wanted to have a connection with him. And although we lived in Rosario, which is far away from Buenos Aires, but because of our connection, he would travel often to us, and that's how our connection began. So Mr. Salfoy was married, and they visited doctors shortly after their marriage, and the doctors told them immediately that they will never have any children. Rabbi Baumgarten, the parents gave him a letter, please go to the Rebbe and ask him for a bracha for us, want a bracha for children. And he went after Simchas Torah, he traveled to the Rebbe, and he delivered to the Rebbe this letter. And he's in the Rebbe's room. Here's a letter from this couple, the Salfoy couple, family. They want the bracha for children because the doctors say they will never have any children. So the Rebbe responded that she's already pregnant. They didn't know, but the Rebbe knew. She was already pregnant, and they were asking, the doctor said she could never have children, but the Rebbe said she's already pregnant. That's story number one. Mr. Salfoy always wanted to move from Argentina to Israel. And he wrote to the Rebbe about this many times. And the reason he wanted to move to Israel was because he felt in Rosario there was no appropriate place to teach his children. So at that time, Rabbi Baumgarten had passed away already. And Rabbi Tzvi Greenblatt, who's currently the Rebbe's emissary to Argentina, the chief emissary there, he delivered to them the Rebbe's response. They asked the Rebbe, want to move to Israel because there's no appropriate way to educate our children here. What should we do? Want to move to Israel? The Rebbe said that if there's a problem with educating your children, you could do something about it. You, Mr. Salfoy, you could do something about it. So his Lubavitch friends said to him that the Rebbe is empowering you to do something directly. You have to get involved with education. The community that he lived in was sort of like a community within a community. There was a large industry of meat in Rosario, and there still is, and a lot of slaughterhouses. And so there's a certain Jewish community like evolved as a result of the many shachtim, many ritual slaughterers who moved there with their families. They had a little community there, and they made a shul and a mikveh and a little afternoon school. And besides that, there was also in the city a Bialik school. And Bialik is not usually an Orthodox school. There was this one. And but because the Rebbe told him that he should get involved in education, he asked himself, what could I do? He was a lawyer. But the Rebbe said he should get involved in education. So he went over to the principal in this Bialik school, and he said, can I be a teacher? And she was surprised because he was a respected lawyer in town, and yet he wants to become a teacher. And so he started working both as a lawyer and as a teacher. And he was given several classes in the high school, and he taught them Yiddishkeit, taught them Judaism. And he noticed as soon as he became involved in education, his business grew exponentially. And he had a lot of success both teaching and also with his own education of his own children. He saw a real success. He did what the Rebbe asked him to do, and he saw that it really worked for his family. The children in his class would come to him on Shabbos, and they would come to him on Yantiv. They would put on film with him. He actually arranged a minyan in besides the minyan of the other community. He arranged a minyan with the students themselves in the Bialik school. They made their own minyan, and these were children who had no knowledge of Yiddishkeit, and yet they were inspired because of this man, Mr. Salfoy, to make a minyan. So he was very successful with them, and he still wanted to really move to Israel. The Rebbe's instruction kept him there for many years, and every time he asked the Rebbe if he should move to Israel, the Rebbe kept him telling him it's not yet time. In 1980, he suddenly felt this is the time. He suddenly had this feeling in his soul, it's the time. And he didn't just feel that way. He sold some of his property, and he sent it, some of his belongings he sent on a ship to Israel. Like, I'm already going. And he wanted to ask, and then when it came to New York, for Yud Shvat, which was 1980, was the Rebbe's as anniversary of this, the Rebbe's 30th year of leading the Jewish people. So he and his wife and two daughters came to visit the Rebbe, and he wrote to the Rebbe, I've already sent my stuff to Israel, and I want to know if we should actually move there. If it's not a good idea, I'll bring it right back. And the Rebbe began the audience, he almost fainted. He's a lawyer, and every word that he says, he measures and he's very careful. But just being in the Rebbe's presence, it's overwhelming. And the Rebbe begins the audience with the time, it's too early. He's like, too early. And he's thinking like the Rebbe was telling him he shouldn't move to Israel. And he sent his stuff to Israel. It's too early. And he's like, and the Rebbe stopped, and the Rebbe continued to tell you what you should do in Israel. In other words, whether you should work in education, whether you should work as a lawyer. It's too early to tell you what to do in Israel. And then he was able to breathe. And the Rebbe agreed, since he already made that decision, the Rebbe agreed to allow him to go to Israel. But the Rebbe didn't yet tell him what his mission, what his focus should be when he got to Israel. And then the Rebbe started asking him about different people in Argentina. Now, the Rebbe, he said, Mr. Salfoy said that he couldn't remember all the names and all the places that the Rebbe the Rebbe knew more than he did about people in his neighborhood and their names and where they lived. And he was having a hard time following all the things the Rebbe had said. But anyways, he told the Rebbe what he was able to share. And he left with the bracha to move to Israel. And the Rebbe told him that, also asked him about his minyan that he had started, someone taking care of it. In general, the Rebbe generally tells people who want to move to a new place to make sure that what they've already started should continue. They shouldn't leave their responsibilities without anyone taking care of them. Anyway, so he came back again to the Rebbe in 1981, and he had several audiences then as well. And he got instruction from the Rebbe about what he should do in Israel. The Rebbe told him he should move to Bnei Brak, and in Bnei Brak he should work as a lawyer. So he had to pass an exam to get a license to be a lawyer in Israel, and he worked for a meat company in Israel. In 1991, he came with two of his daughters. He had then already 4 children with him to the Rebbe. And you have to understand, this is 1991. The Rebbe is giving out dollars to thousands of people for tzedakah. He comes by with his wife. You only buy the Rebbe for a quarter of a second. The bracha v'atzlacha, and that's it. That's the amount of time you have with the Rebbe, the time it takes to say bracha v'atzlacha. He comes by, he walks past the Rebbe with his wife, with his 2 daughters, and his wife. And then the Rebbe calls him back. The Rebbe says, you have 2 other children in Israel. In other words, you should have asked for them for a bracha as well. And then he gave $2 other for his 2 other children that were in Israel. The Rebbe sees him in a quarter of a second. There's 2 children you have in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe is more conscious of his children than he was. He forgot to ask for bracha for them. The Rebbe was like, you have 2 children in Israel. Okay, so he's working as a lawyer, and he went back and forth to Argentina several times because he wanted also to sell some property, some real estate he had in Argentina, but he saw that the market wasn't really doing so well, and he wasn't sure if it was the right time to sell the property. And the Rebbe said to him, he asked the Rebbe, as he asked the Rebbe about everything, and the Rebbe said to him that since Argentina is not very stable, you should wait. And he didn't have any money. He really needed to sell that property to continue to pay for his expenses. But the Rebbe told him to wait, and he waited. And it was Baruch Hashem, because he listened to the Rebbe, he was able to sell his property with great profit. 2 more stories about this man, Mr. Southboy. This is an incredible story. He has a friend who had a daughter who was born with a disease. And his friend, his close friend, and he wanted to ask the Rebbe for a bracha for his friend. And he wasn't sure if he should mention to the Rebbe that this person doesn't keep anything in Judaism at all. Is that relevant to his question? He wasn't sure how to present this to the Rebbe. And he just finally decided he's not going to say anything, just going to tell the Rebbe this person has a daughter and she has this disease, and he wants a bracha for his friend's daughter. He sent a fax to the Rebbe, and they responded immediately. Regarding your fax on the 20th of Adar for this particular person, the Torah says, if you will keep my mitzvahs, Hashem says, I will give you rain in its season. So Rebbe wrote, if you ever didn't quote the whole verse, I said, if you'll keep my mitzvahs, and I will give, etc., all the needs of a human being. In other words, Hashem places a contingency of physical blessings to keeping God's commandments. So the Rebbe is saying about this guy's friend, it was telling him, Hashem says, if you'll keep my mitzvahs, Hashem says, then you will have your needs. So he was shocked because he didn't tell the Rebbe who this guy was, and the Rebbe somehow knew this guy wasn't religious at all. And he was telling him that he should start keeping mitzvahs of a bracha for his daughter. And they concluded that he will pray for this person at the resting place of the previous Rebbe. So Mr. Salfoy had no choice. Rebbe told him what he had. He gave him marching orders very clearly. You got to talk to this guy about his Judaism. This will help his daughter. And he did. And he went with his wife, and they brought them Shabbos candlesticks. And Baruch Hashem, they started, one mitzvah leads to another. They started keeping Yiddishkeit seriously, and they saw exponential, and it's a dramatic change. Baruch Hashem, their daughter, the doctors had no expectation at all that their daughter could recover, and she, Baruch Hashem, recovered significantly, far beyond what the doctors expected her to. And he and his wife became more observant, and together with this, as their observance grew, they saw directly how this helped their daughter. Last story. So, as I mentioned before, he worked as a lawyer for a company that brought meat from different countries in the world to Israel. The original arrangement with the Israeli government was that the government maintains the rights of the sale of the meat in Israel, and the companies that brings the meat to Israel bring the meat to the government to sell. The laws changed, and the Israeli government allowed various proprietors to sell meat in Israel of the kind of meat that he was selling. And when this started, there was a Levyasan kind of guy. Levyasan, when I mean Levyasan, I mean like a huge company. A guy representing this huge company came over to him and said to him, I want to become a partner with you. I want to get involved in your business. I want to share in your business. So he's a kind of guy, a kind of company that's a Levyasan. I say Levyasan, I mean Levyasan is a huge fish. It's a kind of company that swallows up little fish. So he was afraid that he's going to lose his whole business by bringing this guy in. The guy's offering him to become a partner with him. So he wasn't sure what to do, and he had many reasons why he thought it wasn't a good idea. And he wrote them all to the Rebbe. And he wrote to the Rebbe that his friends were telling him, listen, you're right, you have a point, this guy may swallow us up. On the other hand, he's offering this to you, and he's one of the big people in bringing meat to Israel, so you should consider. So he wrote to the Rebbe. There he asked the Rebbe for advice. He wrote to the Rebbe how all of hesitation, why he didn't want to get into this. And he sent the fax to the Rebbe. The next morning, as soon as he came back from Shachris, he hears that an answer has arrived from the Rebbe. Rabbi Groner calls him and tells him, the Rebbe says, you must do the deal. You must accept this guy's offer. Now, he was certain that Rabbi Groner must have not understood this. He called Rabbi Groner, and Rabbi Groner's like, I don't know what your problem is. I told you clearly, very clearly what the Rebbe said. The Rebbe said, you have to do this deal. So Baruch Hashem, he listened to the Rebbe. He went into this business. He went to the partnership with this Leviathan kind of guy. And he said that everyone else who was involved in bringing meat to Israel, all those other companies are all extinct. And all those other smaller companies are all not there anymore. And his company's still there because he paid attention and he listened to the Rebbe. Those are the stories I wanted to share. And bottom line is that you see it in these stories that the Rebbe was able to be more conscious of this guy and his financial welfare and his medical welfare and his family and everything that's going on in his life in a very vivid way, ways beyond that he knew about himself. And that his blessings were beyond logic and reason, beyond total miraculous. So in a similar way today as well, we have to realize that the Rebbe never was limited to time and space, and his blessings continue. Hashem blesses us through the Moshe Rabbeinu, through the Moses of our generation. And we should, as we approach the day of the redemption, the previous Rebbe, we're coming from Gimel Tammuz. The day of the previous Rebbe was released from prison. We're approaching the Bais Tammuz, and the previous Rebbe was completely released from exile as well. It's a great time to ask for a blessing for good things. And the main blessing we need is the real redemption, not just the redemption of Bais Tammuz, but the redemption from Golus, the true, complete redemption from all disturbances and with coming Mashiach Karav Mamish. Any questions? Comments? Good David. Good Nachamendel. Good Beryl. Good Yehuda.
Wow.